Hey, Chair, it looks like we have a quorum, so you may begin whenever you are ready.
All right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad you can make it today. Good thing our transit vehicles have foghorns on them, huh? Because boy, this morning. So good afternoon, members of the MAG Transit Committee. As a reminder, please turn your mics on and clearly state your name before speaking to ensure that members of the audience can hear you, and please mute your mics when not speaking to eliminate feedback noise. As a reminder, phone attendees will need to press *6 to unmute themselves. And because this is a virtual meeting, a roll call vote will be taken for each action on the agenda. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members. Hannah, do your magic.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start the roll with Jill Dusenberry.
Here.
Thank you. Harold Seguenza.
Here.
Thank you. Sean Banda. Jason Crampton.
Here.
Thank you. Jose Macias.
Here.
Thank you. Jeff Graves. Don Coomer. I didn't quite catch that, but I believe you might be present. Don Coomer.
Hi, this is Dawn. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Williams. Vice Chair Link.
Here.
Thank you. Christine McMurdy.
I'm here.
Thank you. Tony Flood.
Here.
Thank you. Reed Kempton.
Here.
Thank you. Jody Sorrell.
Here.
Thank you. Kathy Colbath. Nina Arredondo.
Here.
Thank you. Heather Wilkie.
Present.
Thank you. Salvatore LaPuma. Ratna Korapella. Kristen Taylor. Eric Iverson. Gabe Elias.
Here.
Thank you. Carol Ketcherside.
Here.
Thank you. Grant Anderson. Chair Sapien.
Present.
Thank you. And is there anyone that I might have missed?
This is Sean Bond, the City of Buckeye. Sorry, I was running a minute late.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I just want to let you know, this is Christine, that Kathy Colbath retired. So Rhonda, oh, I forget her last name, but the deputy city manager, the deputy transportation or transit director over there, I think is filling her post.
Thank you so much for that reminder. We will work on a new appointment for the Transit Committee for Peoria. Thank you so much.
You bet.
And Chair, we have quorum, so you may proceed.
Thank you so much. Item number 2, call to the audience. An opportunity for public comment on the agenda was provided ahead of the meeting. MAG staff, have we received any public comments?
Chair Sapien, we have not received any public comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item number 3, Audra Kester Thomas, MAG Transportation Planning Program Manager, will provide a report on activities of general interest relative to Transportation Planning Program Manager's report. Audra.
Thank you, Chairman Sapien, members of Transit Committee. Welcome to December. Just a few items for your attention today. First, like to welcome Tony Flood as the newest member of MAG's Transit Committee. Tony will be representing the city of Maricopa. Also want to notify you that MAG has released its 2022 annual report on the status of the implementation of Proposition 400. This annual report is in its 18th edition. This is a statutorily required document that we produced on the implementation of Proposition 400. This year is particularly an achievement. We've made several visually appealing modifications to this report to really better articulate the wealth of delivery of this important investment over the past 18 years here in the region. It is posted on our website, but you certainly can read out to us and we'll be able to provide you a link to that document or a hard copy if you are so interested. And then finally, I'd like to offer congratulations to the city of Phoenix on the recent announcement of a $1 million FTA TOD grant, again, going to the South Central Corridor. This grant will help to support affordable housing, increase pedestrian and bicycle access to transit hubs, facilitate mixed-use development, and assess opportunities for investment in the local economy, building off of previous efforts throughout this corridor. So congratulations again to the city of Phoenix. We'll hear a little bit more about some of that work later in today's agenda. And then before I turn this back over to Chairman Sapien, I do want to acknowledge that at the direction of MAG's leadership, mayors and appointed body of the MAG Executive Committee, we continue to work feverishly on finding an opportunity to get the extension of Proposition 400 to the earliest ballot. With recent elections, certainly more coming into focus with leadership in the legislature, we'll continue to take the direction of our leadership on the future of this endeavor. If you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me offline. Chairman Sapien, that completes my presentation for today.
Thank you so much, Audra. Any questions from the members? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the approval of the September 12th, 2022 Transit Committee meeting minutes. Do any members of the committee have questions or corrections to the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Christine McMurdy, move to approve.
Thank you, Christine. Can I get a second?
Second, this is Jason and Chairman.
Thank you, Jason. Hannah will do a roll call vote. Please indicate how you vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start the roll with Jill Dusenberry.
Aye.
Thank you. Harold Seguenza. Sean Banda.
Aye.
Thank you. Jason Crampton.
Aye.
Thank you. Jose Macias.
Aye.
Thank you. Don Coomer.
Approved.
Thank you. Nathan Williams.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Link, or Vice Chair Link, excuse me.
Aye.
Thank you. Christine McMurdy.
Aye.
Thank you. Tony Flood.
Aye.
Thank you. Reed Kempton.
Aye.
Thank you. Jody Sorrell.
Aye.
Thank you. Nina Arredondo.
Aye.
Thank you. Heather Wilkie,
Aye.
thank you. Gabe Elias,
Aye.
thank you. Carol Ketcherside,
Aye.
thank you. Chair Sapien,
Aye.
thank you. And are there any members that I might have missed?
Ratna? Aye.
Thank you.
This is Kristen from Surprise, and I also vote aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everybody. With a
Right.
motion, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, and Chair, and the motion passes.
Thank you very much, everybody, for working through that. Item number 5 on the agenda will be presented by Christina Hernandez, City of Phoenix Transit Compliance Administrator. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion. I wanted to, before I hand it off to Christina, first and foremost, tell everyone thank you for their participation in the most recent triennial review. This item is on here at the request of a few cities that asked us at previous transit committee meetings to basically give an overview of the triennial process, the who, why, what, and when, and where we are right now. Of course, we've missed a couple of transit committee meetings since then. The final report was issued by the FTA in August, and that is included in the MAG packet. I know many of you read that 40 plus pages in the past couple of days in preparation for this meeting. But I also want to thank everybody in the region who participated, provided information. We had Valley Metro, several other cities. You never know what the FTA is going to look like when they're here. What we say here is sometimes they go a mile wide and an inch deep, and sometimes it's the other way around. So we never know what they're going to look at. But we always get great cooperation from our regional partners. So thank you for that. Some of them were slam dunks and easy to provide information and respond. A few of them we're still working on because there's some new requirements that came out. So I'll hand it over to Christina, who can give us an overview, and then we're happy to take any questions. Christina?
Christina Hernandez. Thank you, Chairman Sapien and members of the committee. It is my pleasure to present the FY 2022 Federal Transit Administration Triennial Review findings, and attached to our packet is the Triennial Review Report, as Chairman Sapien mentioned, for your review. But first, I would like to give a quick overview of the review process and how FTA conducts a review of this magnitude. So FTA is responsible for conducting oversight activities of recipients who receive FTA grant funds. So with the new bipartisan infrastructure law and the increase of funding for public transportation, FTA is ensuring that our administration of the programs are in compliance. So basically they're checking to make sure that we are doing what we say we are doing in our policy and procedures. As FTA mentions throughout this whole process, this is a review, not an audit. This is their time and our time to seek any guidance and strengthen our programs. What FTA will do is they will conduct a review in 23 review areas. To name a few, financial management, transit asset management, maintenance, procurement, ADA, 5310 program, and the list goes on and on. After this process, FTA may elect to conduct a more specific program review, which we call an enhanced review in a program area. Thankfully, Phoenix has not received any notification of any additional reviews that are upcoming. Next slide, please. So in November, the triennial review is a process. It is just that. It is from start to finish. This will be over a year-long process. So in November of 2021, Phoenix was notified that a triennial review would be conducted in FY22. We were originally provided with the initial package. This package entails information we need to provide to FTA. What does Phoenix fleet look like? What are our hours of operation, our policy and procedures? All this initial information was due in January of 2022. FTA will go through this information and scope out what they want to select a sample selection of. They'll do a little bit more detailed testing. FTA did some sample selections in our financial management. Really, it's the reimbursements. in our maintenance records, in our procurements, and all that additional information was due in April. The week prior to the visit, this is where we're really getting ready for them to come on board. We coordinated schedules with all of our regional partners. We booked meetings. We were just preparing for them to come on site, and they came on site virtually this year. The entrance conference occurred on June 13th. The reviewers were on site that week, June 13th through the 19th. We had all hands on deck. They were reviewing files, they were virtually inspecting records. They interviewed numerous staff members, including many of our partners in all 23 areas. The exit conference occurred on June 16th, and we received a number of draft reports, and the final report issued on August 17th. Throughout this whole process, we submitted over 2,400 documents to FTA that were cataloged, uploaded, all for their review. It was a lot of documents. So I want to thank all of our partners, as Jesus mentioned. Without your cooperation, this would not have been possible. Next slide, please. So the next steps. So there was a total of 10 deficiencies that were found. Of course, we have to respond to all the deficiencies by the established due dates. Those due dates are in the packet. Of the 23 program areas, there was 6 areas that had deficiencies. They were in, 1 was in technical capacity, 2 findings were in satisfactory continuing control, 4 in procurement, 1 in ADA, 1 in equal employment opportunity, and 1 in drug-free workplace. What I would say with all this, most of the deficiencies were administrative in nature. I am very happy the way this report turned out and this review. So let's get into the findings. The first finding was in the technical capacity program. Phoenix's IGAs did not contain the required subaward information. What we have done to correct this item is we revised our current IGA templates to include that missing information. We provided to FTA the IGA template that we recently issued to a subrecipient with that revised language, and this item was closed by FTA on October 31st. The second deficiency was in satisfactory continuing control. Our real property inventory plan did not include our subrecipients. So what we have done is we have updated our real property plan, and this is actually an ongoing item, to include all the applicable subrecipients. And what they were looking for was a couple elements. They're looking for property location, their address, appraised value date, anticipated disposition, sale price, etc. Phoenix held 2 questions and answers meetings for our regional partners, one on November 8th, another on November 29th, and we provided guidance and technical assistance. All this information is due from our regional partners on December 9th. So this is an ongoing item, and this is all due to FTA by December 31st. The next item is, again, in satisfactory continuing control. 1 was in real property. This one is in excess real property. Excess real property utilization inventory plan was out of date. So we're currently working on updating that excess real property plan to include all those elements. And this item is due to FTA by December 31st. It's the same elements we talked about, missing the property location, the condition of the property, useful life, the acquisition cost, all that good stuff. We're putting all this information together as we speak. The next couple items, or next few items, are in procurement. So Phoenix did not have a formal process for conducting and documenting responsibility determinations during the review. What this means is, what FTA is looking for is when we make an award to a contractor, a recipient needs to consider the integrity of the contractor's past performance, and the applicable, if applicable, the contractor's financial and technical resources, including conducting azmag.gov. So you got to put all that into a memo. As I mentioned, FTA conducted a select sample. They sampled 5 of our contracts. So what we did is we put all this information for each of those sampled contracts, that information together. We provided it to FTA, We also provided our updated policy and procedures and our standard operating procedures to FTA. In addition, we had provided a current RFP solicitation that we had on the streets at that time to FTA to show them that we implemented all these changes. This item was closed by FTA on November 8th. The next item, Phoenix did not have on file an independent cost estimate for a sole source. One of the corrective action items, you might see this as a theme because we needed to amend our policy and procedures and update them. So we provided our updated policy and procedure. We updated our own standard operating procedures, highlighting how we're going to implement the independent cost estimate and or cost price analysis requirements in these contracts. We provided a current independent cost estimate that we had a current procurement on the streets to FTA, and this item was closed by FTA on September 30th. The next procurement item is dealing really with the contract clause, the FTA contract clauses. The master agreement was updated, and so we were missing a couple of the contract clauses in some of our solicitations. So we were missing the notice to FTA and USDOT Inspector General, as well as the telecommunication and video surveillance services or equipment. What we were required to do was we had to update our contract clauses and our certification matrix. We provided our city policy and procedures, as well as we provided a current procurement that was on the streets, demonstrated that we updated our clauses and we inserted that language into our solicitations. This item was also closed by FTA on November 8th. So the next procurement item was, there was 2 light rail contracts that were selected to be reviewed. One was on the South Central extension. That's a current CA&I, so contract administration and inspection contract. They did not include the lobbying certification from the contractor, so it was not signed. So what we did, of course, is we updated our policy and procedures, making sure that we have all these updated contract clauses, updated certifications. We had the contractors fill out these lobbying certifications, and we provided that to FTA. And FTA closed this item on September 30th, 2022. So the next deficiency was in the Americans with Disability Act. So there's 2 areas with ADA. This was in the general section. And this finding was the city had multiple taxi companies that provide subsidized demand response trips for specific circumstances, which the city did not provide documentation demonstrating that the equivalent service is provided to persons with disability, including wheelchair users. In our brochure, it indicated previously that the individual requiring wheelchair accessible vehicles to schedule trips 24 hours in advance for the taxi voucher program. We have since revised that language. We revised the brochure to reflect the availability of wheelchair accessible vehicles is 24/7. We had the contractor revise the list of participating taxi providers to reflect the removal of this requirement. We had 4 of the 15 cab companies offer wheelchair accessible vehicles, and if needed, the current paratransit contractor can use their current fleet to supplement the program if needed. We also created an evaluation tool that had been implemented to measure the program's effectiveness and equivalent service. So this item was submitted to FTA on September 23rd, and it's currently in review with our regional civil rights officer. The next item is the equal employment opportunity. The Public Transit Department's EEO officer did not have a direct responsibility for investigating transit-related complaints. So typically for the city of Phoenix, our Equal Opportunity Department handles all of our citywide EEO related complaints. So we're currently working with our legal teams to create a process to to work on this item. So this item is still in progress. So this is not due to FDA until December 31st, 2022. And the last item, Drug-Free Workplace Act. So the city's administrative regulations related to drug and alcohol, including the Drug-Free Workplace Act, does not require employees to present written notification of drug convictions within 5 days. The way the city had this requirement in two different policies. We had it in our administrative regulation and our employee handbook. FTA wanted it into one document. So the city had amended our administrative regulations. We disseminated this to citywide employees, I think within the last month. So this item is not due to FTA until December 31st. Chairman Stamian, that is all I have.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, for hanging on and listening to that presentation. One of the things that we have found, and some of you have found because you have participated in previous triennial reviews, is that the findings sometimes are the result of the review team. And what I mean by that is some of them focus on some areas more than others. Some of them don't know how our region works relative to Phoenix as a DR, and our subrecipients carry out different functions. So some of these were, I will say, as a result of having to educate them, like that equal opportunity item, where our equal opportunity department, for example, takes the lead on those investigations. We don't have a say in those, but now they want us to. And then the other one is the drug-free workplace administrative regulation. It was just a little nuance that they wanted to see that wasn't necessarily what I would call a finding, but something that they just wanted clarification on. But nonetheless, this is, I would say, in terms of the threshold of findings, a lot lower than we've seen in the past. We've always done pretty good, but in the past, there have been times when they've said, you were supposed to be doing this and we didn't find evidence that you have been doing it, implement the new program. A lot of these were nuances and updates to some of them were even because of very recent changes to federal regulations that even the reviewer said a lot of agencies weren't aware of. So, it's a good learning experience for us and for the region and everyone that participates directly. And we like sharing this information because, as you all know, when we do our reviews of any programs or services that you might have, it's going to be the same measuring stick, right? We're going to go to what's called the core TAP, the FTA Triennial Review Guide. That's, remind me, Christina, 600 pages long, something like that. And we're going to measure you the same way FTA measures us. The other thing that you've heard me say in recent years is that when the FTA does come and choose a subrecipient to review maintenance or continuing control or program oversight, they used to come in and say, show me you were doing X, Y, and Z. The past two triennials, there's been a little bit of a pivot, and this past one was a little clearer, where they have, approached some of the subrecipients and said, show me what you're doing to show City of Phoenix that you are doing X, Y, and Z, which is a little change, right? They used to come in and do a direct review of some of your programs or services. Now they're saying, show us what you're doing to show Phoenix you're doing this. And in the same time, they're asking us, what are you doing to provide subrecipient oversight? So you all know, for as long as many of us have been here, relative to our DR role and oversight, we try to do it hand in glove with you all, not looking over your shoulder, but sitting at your side, when some of these regulations come out new and revised, so we always appreciate the partnership that everyone provides when we do get federal funds. And some of these are new, but again, we had, I would say, a very cordial, lot of discussion with the review team and FTA San Francisco and local staff. And this was the first triennial, I'd say, that we walked out of where we were like, as Christina said, we're pleased with the way it came out. It was more crossing T's and dotting I's than, you guys are not doing a bunch of stuff. So thank you for your participation and provision of information. And, we are happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Hey, Susan, this is Christine. Thank you so much for sharing the full document. It really does help when you read through it to understand the bar that they have you trying to reach. I really disappointed that the federal government still communicates in the way that they do, where it makes it relatively difficult. Well, relatively, it makes it difficult to really capture what the intent of the rule is and to be able to respond accordingly. I gotta hope that things are going to get easier, but I haven't seen that happen in all the years I've been here. But I do want to thank you again for sharing the document, because it does help me understand the bar that needs to be reached, and it does become that impetus for just making sure that how good your response is going to continue to be in compliance. So, having been through something a long time ago that with an FTA audit that I don't even like to talk about, it can be a very difficult experience, but overall, obviously the result is what's important. And thank you again, and congratulations to you and your staff. And Christina, way to go. Really, I can't imagine what your work day is like, and I really don't want to, but thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Christine. Appreciate it. Yeah, the fact that we sent them over 2,400 documents is a testament to how different this one was, because I can't remember doing anywhere near that amount of documents to submit to any reviewer. And again, the reviewers are sometimes focused on certain areas because that's their specialty, or because that's where they're seeing findings at other properties. But this time it was all over the place. And I mean, they just kept asking and asking, and Christina and her team, kudos to them. They came up with an amazing tracking system to track every document and when we submitted it and why. But 2,400 documents for their review. It was a heavy lift, but we're happy to be on this side of it. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Christina. Really, really appreciate the overview today. Item number 6 will be presented by Joel Carrasco, City of Phoenix Long Range Planning and Transit Oriented Development Planner 3, and Elias Valencia, City of Phoenix South Mountain Village Planner and TOD Village Planner 2. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you so much, Chairman Sapien. Can everybody hear me okay? I saw the thumbs up. Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us here. Transit-oriented development is probably one of our passions here on long-range planning, and I think it's really become more and more prominent across the nation. There's a lot more interest. And the first slide here is a photo simulation that came out of one of our first transit-oriented development planning efforts through a HUD Sustainable Communities grant. And that's really the story that we're telling and continuing to tell here in Phoenix, and continuing to build on that. We're just going to shed a little bit of light on that, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague Elias to do a deeper dive in the South Central plan for us. But there's Reinvent Phoenix there on the screen, 19 North, and then obviously South Central. Those are 3 of the most recent major efforts around transit-oriented development planning. And then we're looking forward to the Capitol and I-10 West area, Northwest 2 area, and then even bus rapid transit as that starts to come out online, looking at all the land use in all of these corridors through this same lens. Next slide, please. So what is transit-oriented development? And that's a little subjective, I'll be honest, that everybody can define this in their own way. There's a lot of different definitions, but we here in the City of Phoenix, for our land use policy, really define this as walkable, compact environments. And we have policy that really outlines the proximity to high capacity transit stations, typically a quarter mile to half mile distance, really to capture the walk shed or the bike shed in these communities. And so you'll see in the next couple slides, you'll see some maps that start to depict this geography along our corridors. And of course, this is a great combination of transportation and land use planning all coming together to really create a more vibrant quality of life for these communities. Again, those pictures show some photo simulations that one of our consultants had done, showing the transformative nature of these spaces from what previously was auto-centric to maybe a more walkable and bikeable environment with larger sidewalks and active uses. Next slide, please. And so why transit-oriented development here in Phoenix? I really like to showcase this slide, and then we'll send out a video on our website as well that tells this story, because transit-oriented development is not something new, right? We called Reinvent Phoenix Reinvent for a reason, because here in Phoenix, we actually had a pretty decent streetcar and trolley system historically pre-automobile, excuse me. And so this effort was really looking and building on that history, and we're continuing to do so. We've identified that as through this framework. Again, this came from Reinvent Phoenix. It was a HUD framework, so sustainability was the ultimate goal, and there's 5 factors there that really shine as we're working with the community in these areas. Next slide, please. And so this is the network that we have and that we've been working with since about 2012, when we got that first Reinvent Phoenix grant. As part of that effort, the first step was to develop this transit-oriented development strategic policy framework. So essentially, this policy is part of our city's general plan. And this was the first document that really created a framework and identified what we call place types at each station that starts to communicate a range of intensity and heights that the community would like to see in these areas. For example, downtown place type is the most highest and the most intense type of uses in our transit-oriented development network. But there's other areas that are more at the neighborhood scale. So you might see something like 2 to 4 stories, some policy that supports 2 to 4 stories in those areas versus downtown, where you have a lot more heights. Next slide, please. And so here's the map that ultimately we wanted to get to really tell this story. And so this is a map, but it's also a timeline. A lot of the orange there came out of our Reinvent Phoenix effort that was early in 2012 to 2015. Shortly after that, we did 19 North. And then most recently, we had South Central, and looking forward to Cap I-10 and Northwest too. So now you can see how all these geographies kind of work together, but also you can see the timeline of some previously adopted plans, some plans that were more recently adopted, and some plans that we're looking to in the near future to really shine the light on some unique and diverse transit-oriented communities across the city of Phoenix. And then you can also see the walk sheds there with the radius markers depicting a 1.5 mile radius. So you can see how those were utilized to create these districts that we've been adopting here in the city of Phoenix. Next slide, please. And so after the TOD strategic policy framework that identified those place types was adopted, the next major milestone for our efforts was to create individual transit-oriented district plans. And you can see those kind of listed there, and they align to the previous map. What do these plans do essentially? Well, they articulate the community's long-range vision. I just want to emphasize that this is community-driven. These were thousands and thousands of hours and surveys, 2 to 3 year long processes to capture the community voice. Although these are city adopted plans, we like to emphasize that these are the community's visions, and they're long range, typically looking at a 30 to 40 year horizon. So, these are looking at like 2050 goals, and they're very aspirational through land use and investments in that regard, because they are visionary documents. What these do is they create a policy basis for us as we're negotiating with the private and public on investments in these areas. They help us to secure additional funds and work with partners, internal and external, to provide some infrastructure that is more supportive of these environments. And they also have a cross-disciplinary action plans within them that we revisit on a regular basis. Next slide, please. And so with that, I just wanted to, fast forward from 2012 with the Reinvent Phoenix and 19 North, and Then 2016 came around, we got a $2 million grant. We were very fortunate to work with the South Central community for 3+ years. Recently got this plan adopted in earlier this year. And again, the purpose there is to really guide some investment in these communities. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague Elias, who has been front and center with South Central for us.
Thank you, Joel. And thank you, Chairman Sapien and members of the committee for having us here. As the South Central TOD Community Plan has definitely been a labor of love, not just for me, but everyone in the South Central TOD corridor and area. On the next slide, you're going to see that the main, if you could summarize the entire plan into one statement, it would be that the South Central corridor residents reject displacement and support equitable transit-oriented development. Now, this is a powerful statement because many, like Joel mentioned earlier, there are many different types of concepts of what is transit-oriented development. Many fears that may coincide with that. This area is going to gentrify. I'm going to lose my place here in my own community. So the voice of the community was loud and clear that they want to benefit from these changes that are going to happen in this corridor. And they support the changes that are happening as long as they're done in an equitable way. And next slide, please. That's what's captured within the entire document. So the community-based vision is documented throughout with their voices and with their local expertise and knowledge of the things that they recommend. All of those recommendations were compiled. And then we had to turn that from just an oral history and verbal and written and actually show it. What could this look like? The picture's worth 1,000 words, right? In this case, it's over billions of dollars of potential investments in infrastructure. So the illustrative master plans were included in the corridor, for the corridor as well. Just to let you know, the South Central extension is between the 7s. That's 7th Street and 7th Avenue. It's about a 5-mile stretch, which includes the downtown hub here on Washington Street and all the way south to South Mountain Avenue. Now, I mentioned the downtown hub because it's a critical component also of the extension that is giving the network the ability to go from an L-shape one-way north. It's expanding the capability and reaction time on the network for the light rail transit. So next slide, please. So those visions, those maps are illustrated through master plans in the document. They help take a physical form to the community's input. Again, we wanted to showcase them, not exactly what's going to be there in 30 years, because that's really hard for anybody to predict. And we also did it in a way where it's general enough to allow for creativity in the development process from local developers as well as through city projects. But more importantly, it shows the context of the community identified points of pride. The places that matter to this community are in gold within each of these master plans, and you can see how they fit into the surrounding area as it incrementally starts to develop. And next slide. So one thing that this effort did was outreach. It did it in English and Spanish. We had our grant team was able to do a tremendous amount of footwork out in the community. As Joel mentioned, this effort was over 3 years in the making just with the grant. Previous to this, there's been a lot of community investment and groups working with the corridor. They were able to collaborate and work as part of a collaborative also to continue to get the word out. So over 10,000 doors being knocked on, road shows and places where people met. That included laundromats, places of worship. This included community events such as plazas and outdoor markets that they would have. So there was a lot of footwork in getting the word out on what this plan was going to do in the corridor. Next slide. But more importantly, this plan identifies the areas of change that the community said that they want to support. You'll see on the right-hand side a map of different degrees of purple. The darker the purple is, that means the more change the community is willing to accept there. And a lot of this is in alignment. It is in alignment with the TOD strategic policy framework, which identified neighborhood types and place types. And it was very great to see that the community was supportive of that, but also that the further out you get from that central corridor or core areas, the more protection they wanted to see for those established neighborhoods, those single-story neighborhoods that may already be existing. And so that was captured and reflected for each of the areas in the plan. Next slide. And again, to show that we are listening and documenting and also working to implement the community vision, the community identified their priority investments, where they would like to see that within those station areas. And that's what the map on the right reflects. All of those letters are called out there on the left-hand side of some of those pedestrian and transit-oriented investments, as well as other investments, including land use, mobility, and housing, as we'll talk about in the next slides. Okay, so this plan is not just a transit approach. It's not just a housing approach. As Joel mentioned earlier, Reinvent Phoenix were spurred off by a HUD fund. This recent grant was from a transit fund, but notice how they are still multiple elements working in tandem to make the vision a reality. So we have our land use, our housing, economic development, health, transit, and green systems components all working together to try to achieve the vision. The one that's highlighted right now is just for the, land use, because as a land use planner, this is a strategy that I would be impacted most in my working environment, but also in what I can do to help shape any of the processes that come in through my direction. If you go to the next slide, that first strategy was to position the South Central Corridor for a new pattern of development. And this is through the Walkable Urban Code. In this document, it called out for expanding the Walkable Urban Code to the South Central extension. But very recently, this year, in fact, the Walkable Urban Code was expanded as an option to all our transit-oriented development corridors. So that's great news as far as getting the vision on its way to being implemented by allowing flexibility and the different types of uses and building forms that can take place within the corridor. Next slide. Oh, Joel, this going back to you here, but before I lead off here, I just want to say that here in the corridor, this document, the South Central Plan, has been referred to as a living document. So many of these policy plans sit on a shelf collecting dust. We are actively working on implementation. We started that early implementation items during the planning process, which was pivotal in keeping the momentum going and that zeal for this plan and for the types of developments that, that could come into the corridor. Not only that, we have an empowered community now, very vocal, very involved, and that's what we want. We want them to do the buy-in on these projects because this community ultimately is their community. It's being shaped by them, for them as well. But speaking on implementation, Joel, I want to go ahead and transfer this back over to you.
Thank you, Elias. And this is the last slide for us here, but we just wanted to end on a high note. You know, there was so much great work that went into that plan. And so many action items, cross-disciplinary action items that we really needed to rely on our partner departments and other stakeholders in the area. And so we put forth an application with this latest cycle of TOD planning grants to the FTA, and we're very fortunate to have been awarded. And we just want to share the 4 major tasks that really stem from the implementation actions that came out of that plan that was adopted. And so the first one is land use related. It's building off the form-based code of the Walkable Urban Code. And just for those that don't know, the Walkable Urban Code is a form-based code, which is different from the conventional zoning districts that we have. It's more of a mixed use type of code that focuses on the form rather than the different individual uses. That's what task number 1 is going to build off. Task number 2 is to look at a more thorough infrastructure assessment, really infrastructure that is supportive of transit-oriented environments in this corridor, and then affordable housing and economic development in a similar fashion, doing a more thorough assessment with our partner departments and our partner experts in other disciplines to really help to jumpstart some of the vision here. So With that, next slide, please. And we really thank you guys for your time. We're open to any questions, and we really appreciate being able to present to this group.
Thank you so much, Joelle and Elias. Any questions? Christine's got her hand up. Let's start with you, Christine.
Joelle, Elias, congratulations. What an incredible presentation, and to everybody in Phoenix for this incredible plan. I'm just curious on that last slide, those 4 items. Is the expectation that you're going to have to measure those results in order to be able to respond to the grant? I'm just curious how you got yourself set up to show progress and then success.
Yes, you know, actually measuring outcomes has been part of our process since our original Reinvent Phoenix effort. And so if you looked at the 6 planning elements, we actually track and measure as much as we can, because it is a difficult process, but we try to measure development activity and investments in these areas. And we're still working on that. But I do think that latest grants will help us to work more closely with our departments, our partner departments, who may be experts in those other disciplines like housing, and so that we can build a tracking system for these areas specifically, because they are much different than the rest of the city. So hopefully that answers your question, but that is definitely on our radar and something we are still approaching.
Yeah, it does. I just think that this whole region is facing so many questions about affordable housing, and this just seems like a really ripe opportunity to show that it can be done. It can be done well, and it can be done to the benefit of so many responsible residents that kind of come out and speak their use their voice and express their needs and be willing to accept something so new, so different, with the unfortunate rumors about what this kind of a project does. And I hope this gets enough traction that it might actually reach legislators who have a tendency to just not even consider the opportunity for improvement, because this is such an extraordinarily large area, and I'm a big fan. So congratulations, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Christine. Appreciate the support. Anyone else have any questions? All right, hearing none. Joelle and Elias, thank you so much for providing this overview. I'm always impressed with the work you guys do, and the plans, the maps, the outcomes, but most of all, the connections you all have made throughout the community. I know when I go to all these meetings, especially along the South Central corridor, you can tell that there's been a lot of discussion, ideas, and workshopping that's gone on down there, led by the City of Phoenix's Planning and Development department, but with several other departments at their side, as Joelle and Elias said, with each of us in our own disciplines, figuring out what can we do to improve these areas and implement these plans. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing this great plan. We shall see each other again. Thank you so much. Item number 7 on the agenda will be presented by Carol Ketcherside, Valley Metro's Deputy Director of Service Planning and Innovation and member of Impact's National Steering Committee. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion, and Carol's going to talk to us about mobility, community, and possibility with her beautiful background ready for the holiday. Carol, take it away.
You bet. Thank you, Chair Sapien. I hope that Joelle and Elias will stay for this, because you're part of my audience. So you guys, please stay. Please. I wanted to give you all a little bit of background. You may have heard of the organization Railvolution, and that's what I'm going to talk about, only they're not called that anymore. So we had a great contingent of folks from Arizona attended the Railvolution conference in Miami. It was in the days that straddled October, November. And the Arizona entities that were represented at that conference included Valley Metro, the cities of Phoenix, Tempe, and Tucson, Arizona State University, the South Central Collaborative, LISC, HDR, Jacobs Engineering, and I probably missed some. On that conference agenda, we had at least four speakers that I know of. I'm not sure that that number is accurate either. The conference in Miami was not only the last Railvolution conference ever to be held, but it was the first post-pandemic in-person conference since the 2019 conference in Vancouver, British Columbia. There were 900 registrants in Miami, which is down from their pre-pandemic levels. They had about 25 mobile workshops going on and 40 some odd different panels in addition to the plenary sessions. So in addition to absorbing the knowledge from the conference itself, the folks that were in attendance from Arizona were also able to observe how the conference operates and flows. During the conference, we actually even held a special meeting for the Arizona delegation to share our thoughts about what we were observing for the conference and how that might translate into the Phoenix conference that we will be hosting next year. So it was a great experience to better equip us to be successful when we host next year. A major event at the Miami conference was the big reveal of Railvolution's new branding. And that's most of my focus today. Next slide. For a long time, Railvolution has been much more than a rail and rail communities organization. The name itself has actually limited the circle for participants and stakeholders and thus the conversation. The change of this name has frankly been overdue. So when talking about Railvolution, if you've ever talked to me about it, I always quickly point you to the tagline, building livable communities with transit. And I'd say, it's not about rail, it's not about rail. The push for rebranding for Railvolution has been to develop a brand that communicates a focus on the intersection of all modes of transit, land use, mobility, and development through a lens of equity, community engagement, collaboration, and creative problem solving. So the new brand that they revealed in Miami is Impact. And the new tagline for Impact is mobility, community, possibility. So I'm going to break this down for you a little bit. Next slide. So here you see the old logo on the top left and the new logo on the bottom right. Also some of the accompanying playful artwork that they will be using in their publications. They have a whole branding out, like a branding book, as if you will. Their new website is up and running. So if you go to the old Railvolution website, it's going to direct you to this new website, or you can go straight to impactmobility.org. Next slide. So looking a bit and thinking of what's behind this new brand, because some of you are you're kind of going, Impact, what does that have to do with anything? The new brand for the organization better prepares the program participants to address today's challenges of building transit-oriented communities that work for people and for our planet. The new brand evokes both who the organization has actually been for some time and also what it seeks to be in the future. Inclusivity and reaching new stakeholders are important themes, and it positions the organization to focus, as they always really have, on the intersection of mobility and community. Next slide. So we're going to break this down a little bit, looking at just the M part of Impact. It does not represent just one thing. The graphic M that you see here conjures up mobility, movement, multimodalism. It's also a playful version of the big M that's often used to mark metro transit stops in many cities. The M also symbolizes the momentum, which is an aspiration of the organization itself. And then I also like to point out that it looks like a bike rack. Some say it looks like an elephant juggling balls, but it's just intended to be a little bit playful. Next slide. Zooming in on the word pact for a moment, there's a dictionary definition of pact that describes it as a formal agreement between two or more people, organizations, or governments to do a particular thing or to help each other. So this portion of the name highlights the commitment that we make to each other and to the community. The organization's interpretation of this word, pact, is that working together can result in more than just resilient communities around transit. Of course, when you put these two pieces together, you get the word impact, which has a meaning in and of itself. So next slide. There were always several programs in the Railvolution on the Railvolution platform. And so these are the new names. The Railvolution Annual Conference is now the Impact Transit Plus Community Conference. The Move Roundtables are now called Impact Lab. They have blogs and podcasts and webinars. Those are now called Impact Voices. And the new Railvolutionaries group is now called Impact New Leaders. And I'm going to get into a couple of those things a little bit more as I go. So next slide. So why I wanted you all to be well versed in this topic is because we, Valley Metro, and this region, and it is a group effort, will host the first ever Impact Transit Plus Community Conference next November at the Phoenix Downtown Sheraton. The expected attendance is somewhere between the Miami conference attendance of 900 and the pre-pandemic average attendance for this conference, which is about 1,200. So it is a national conference that will obviously showcase our region, but there's also a regional component of it. There's on Wednesday afternoon, they turn it over to just the region for what they call Regional Day. And it's a conference within a conference, and it's a completely regional audience. It's more than just the regional people that have registered for the national conference. We would be bringing in our own regional people. If you think about kind of the audience that you're used to seeing at a Friends of Transit type conference, that's more of what the regional day looked like. I went to the one in Miami because I was having a hard time wrapping my head around what regional day was, and that's what it was. It's an opportunity to take advantage of the momentum and the resources that are offered by the national conference. So there might be speakers that the national conference has been able to attract, but that will stay over and address us for a regional day. Also, the national organization Impact has already secured the hotel space and that sort of stuff. So that's what Regional Day is all about. So be thinking about that. Next slide. As the host for this great big conference, we are expected to host the opening reception. Sorry, shouldn't say that word. We are expected to provide a lot of volunteers, and I'll get back to that. We get to provide input on the conference theme of the program. We develop the Regional Day that I just mentioned, and there's also a fundraising piece for sponsorships that I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. Go to the next slide, please. So for our region, the benefit to us is it's a great opportunity to rejuvenate support for transit investments, especially depending on where our proposition is at that point. We'll also be showcasing what's going on in Phoenix to the rest of the country, and we'll be able to take advantage of national caliber educational opportunities for the folks that we might get to attend either the whole conference or the regional day. And as with any conference, the region's going to benefit from the economic activity that will come to the region just from having this conference. Next slide. So this little diagram, this is from the old Railvolution handbook, that it is their suggested structure of committees for the local host to organize around. You'll see the largest, the size of the circle is indicative of the amount of work that goes into a given community. One of the largest ones is the Mobile Workshop Committee, which we have included the Pre-Conference Events Committee, which is another smaller circle. So we folded those together. That's chaired by April Trevette at Valley Metro and co-chaired by Jessica Parks, now with WSP. That committee needs a lot of helpers. So, these are all opportunities for you all, because you can still join these committees, anything you're interested in. The fundraising committee is also a very large circle. That is going to be chaired by Mark McLaren from HDR. And some of the other committees, the volunteer committee will be chaired by Julie Cruz from Valley Metro. The marketing and communications committee is chaired by Madeline Phipps and Caitlin Everly from Valley Metro. And the welcoming reception committee is going to be chaired by Becky Miller from ASTA. The scholarship committee does not have a chair just yet. We're still working on that. Next slide. So what can you do? There's still opportunities to join those committees if any of them are of interest to you. We need a lot of mobile tour guides and organizers. And so if you have ideas about what we already have a long list of tours. But if you have ideas and you want to check that we've already picked them up, or maybe something we want to add, you can get in touch with either me or April Trevette or Jessica Parks. Any of us can get you plugged in. We needed lots and lots of volunteers. The volunteers do everything from stand around the hotel and help people find conference rooms to actually being at the airport. When we went to Miami, there were signs everywhere at the airport. There were people standing there helping direct people, because this crowd actually takes transit from the airport to the conference. And so there'll be volunteers around to help guide people do that. There'll be volunteers to help guide people to get to the reception, the opening reception, and that sort of thing. So we have a lot of need for that. We also want Phoenix to be well represented by speakers and presentations. So even if you don't particularly want to speak, you might have an idea for a session, and you could bring organizing skills and put a panel together, even if you don't want to speak on it. So think about that. The impact speaker and program development process is rather formal, so I'm just laying out how that works. The call for speakers generally goes out in early February, with proposals due at about mid-March. And the National Steering Committee takes all the proposals in, evaluates them, and they actually set the program. So just be aware it's a process, but we would love to have presentations from this region. The Impact New Leaders Group is looking for new members, and who they are. It sounds like a young professionals group. It's not. And you also don't even need to be new to the industry. You just have to want to participate in this group. They're kind of a bit of the fun element of the conference. They do host, the big event they host is called the PK Slam, and if you want to know more about what that is, I'll be happy to tell you. But it is a series of 7-minute presentations that are presented in a very prescribed format. It's done in a more of an evening social format, which, if you, in parentheses, that means there's a bar at this event. So it's lots of fun. We don't have a location yet, but it's likely to be maybe at the Crescent Ballroom, for example. That's the kind of event that it is. New Leaders also organizes some free walking tours, and sometimes they sponsor a community service activity in the area. So hard to say what they're going to do exactly for our conference, but they are looking for new volunteers. So next slide. And I did want to just touch on the fact that the Move Roundtable, which is one of the programs that Rail Evolution has always had, that's now called Impact Lab. We did have one of these in the Phoenix region in August and September. So I just want to make a quick shout out that we did this. It's a 12-hour, 6-week activity for a region to focus on a specific problem or a topic. That's generally what it is. When we did it here in Phoenix, we hosted this activity, and we brought together a very diverse group of stakeholders. Some of you were in there, but we really tried to reach out to land use folks and community health folks and that sort of thing. We brought together a diverse group in this region, and we discussed what we'd like to see come out of this conference as we host it. That was the I don't want to call it a problem, but that was the topic that we focused on. So next slide. Some of the takeaways that came from all that group discussion was a desire to connect to and reflect the many different communities in our region, the importance of alignment amongst ourselves and at many levels, such as housing and transit across jurisdictions. There was a desire to allow the conference to help us build stronger connections amongst our stakeholders, and a desire to find meaningful ways to achieve ongoing interface with the community after the conference was long gone. There's also a desire to improve connectivity between various elements that create community, such as transportation, housing, public health, economic and community development, all of the above. Next slide. So that is all I have to formally inform you of, and be happy to take any questions or hear any discussion or ideas.
Thank you so much, Carol. Do any of the members of the committee have any questions for Carol? Not seeing any, hearing any. Thank you so much, Carol. That is very exciting for our region. And of course, November is a perfect time to have people come visit. Thank you so much. This is great work on behalf of the region, and looking forward to having people from all over visit Phoenix to see how far we've come in the transit world. Very, very useful. Thank you. Next item, request for future agenda items. Are there any requests by a committee member for any future agenda items? If you don't have any now, you can reach out to myself or Hannah or Audra and let us know if you have anything for future agenda items. Item number 9, member agency updates. Are there any updates or announcements by any committee members? Any information you'd like to share with the group? All right, that fog had a long-lasting effect. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 9th at 1 p.m. via teleconference. Keep an eye out for that information and meeting links. Last item, adjournment. With no further business, the meeting of the MAG Transit Committee is now adjourned at 2:11 p.m. We don't need a roll call for adjournment. Executive privilege allows me to just end the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.